Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, April 22nd, 8:45 a.m. We are back once again with another market open. I hope everyone is having a great morning. We are starting off the week Monday. I hope you guys had a great weekend as well. I got to relax this weekend, got a decent amount of work done this weekend, so the weekend was good. And now we're back into the flow of the market open. This is going to be one of the most consequential weeks, at least in April and probably over the next few months until we get into Q2 earnings. But we are in the midst of Q1 earnings this week. They are starting and it is officially here. This week, we are going to hear from a lot of companies: Meta, Visa, Spotify, Comcast, Google, Intel, Snapchat, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, Chevron, HCA Healthcare, Verizon, and Truist. We heard from them this morning. We're going to talk about them. Boeing, AT&T, and of course, the one and only Tesla. I'll be live tomorrow morning starting at probably 3:30. I'll have a couple guests with me here. And we're going to be discussing Tesla. That is the first topic of today's show, because over the weekend, you think, not that much news would happen in regards to Tesla, but no, a billion pieces of news came out in regards to Tesla. So we'll be talking about that as we start the morning open. We also have to talk about Palantir. I paid €1 to this German publication to get access to their newest article about Palantir. It showed some really interesting stuff. I'll talk more about it on Daily Palantir today, but we'll discuss it as well on the market open. Iran said some interesting stuff about Israel that got oil prices to go down, which was very good. 10 years getting a little bit higher. The U.S. House of Representatives is banning TikTok. And the Senate, if they officially pass it, maybe TikTok does get banned. The implications of that in the context of China and America relations are going to be interesting. There's a lot to discuss, and we're going to get into it today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's do the market open. Gerald, Chris, Tony Bags, I'm Beneficial, Mark, Kaios. Thank you all for being here today. Brad, Open Skies, Iceman, JJWS, Jagger Float, Emmanuel, Bitcoin is back. That is another thing we're going to be talking about. The Bitcoin halving is done. This stupid halving event that we've all been talking about for the past couple months, it's finished and Bitcoin is going up. And hopefully that halving event continues to make Bitcoin go up. Also, we have to talk about some implications in the context of the miners and the costs for transaction fees that have started to go a bit higher. So we'll be talking about that. David, Dax, Midwest, Miami Ren, Scott, Colorblind Collector. Thank you all for being here. David said the boy slimmed down. No, I didn't slim down. I just got a haircut. That's why I look skinnier. I've got to actually lose the weight for you guys to really see Skinny Amit, which was here in October, but then he let himself go. Skinny Amit will be back, I think, by at least July. The latest will be back. But yeah, I got a haircut over the weekend, so that got a little bit of the weight off. Harvey, I'm Beneficial, Mr. Snake, Joel, Ed, Marvin, Ty Gordon, Altal, Joseph, Martin, Player One, Bryant Robinson, Justin, Brian, June. Thank you all for being here today. Let's get into it. All right. We're starting off with Tesla. Going to get some news on Tesla. So over the week, a lot of interesting stuff, or over the weekend, a lot of interesting things happened in regards to Tesla. I want to go through a couple of the highlights this weekend that I think were really important to discuss. And then we're going to talk about my earnings prediction for Tesla, since the earnings is tomorrow. And I've got some thoughts on what I think is going to happen in the world of Tesla. So let's pull up the first thing that happened over the weekend, which I think was very important, along with something that happened this morning that happened, or that is important when it comes to Tesla. First thing is FSD has been reduced. The price of FSD has been reduced from 12,000 to 8,000. So nice shortcut or haircut when it comes to Tesla. We'll talk about TFC and Verizon in just a bit. And that is what's happening in the world of Tesla that got at least the market very, very excited. 12,000 to 8,000. Now, obviously, the Tesla subscription price we saw last week went from $199 to $100 a month, which is good for people that are interested in adopting FSD. But the full self-driving entire suite went from 12,000 to 8,000. In my opinion, it makes no sense to pay upfront, because even if you have FSD for 5 years, which after 5 years you might get a new car, that FSD subscription would only be $6,000, which means $100 a month would be cheaper over 5 years. And if you just don't like it, you can cancel it. We obviously know FSD is not at level 5 yet, so it's not ready for prime time. So also paying $8,000 to me doesn't make a lot of sense. I know there's this concern around transferring your subscription, and if you buy the whole thing, you have a better chance to be able to transfer it. But regardless, FSD is not at the point, we all can objectively agree, where paying for it up front makes a lot of sense, because it's not ready yet. Now, will it be ready by 8/8, the infamous Robotaxi day? I don't really think so. Maybe it is. But until then, I think the subscription makes a lot more sense. The broader question here is, why did they cut the price from 12,000 to 8,000? And I think it's pretty obvious. It's the same reason they cut prices in China. It's the same reason they cut prices in the United States by $2,000 for the Model Y and Model 3. And this morning, or I think it was yesterday morning, Tesla cut prices in the EU. That also makes sense. Last week, we saw that EU registrations for Tesla were at the 16-month lows in the month of March, and overall EV demand was at 134,000 cars in the month of March, which is the lowest it's been in the European Union for a long time. It seems obvious demand for EVs. Li Auto is down this morning. NIO is down this morning. Tesla, is it under 140 yet? Right now, Tesla is 140.25, so 25 cents away. It's down 4.68%. The entire market's up. Tesla's red. So obviously this is a very specific Tesla sell-off. It's becoming obvious that the EV demand is starting to get rough for Tesla. And when EV demand is getting rough for Tesla, not only are margins and volumes not going to be able to increase, but if they want to convince the street that FSD is the saving grace of the company in a world in which EV demand is low and rates are still going to be high, well, then you got to get people to adopt FSD. And if people weren't paying for it at $199 a month and definitely weren't paying at a $12,000 full package, you got to cut prices. And that's what we're seeing right now in the world of Tesla, which is why Tesla is down. June says, what happens if you crash your car with FSD after a year? You lose money. Well, this is the other thing. Tesla has not come out with a program of assuming full liability yet, which is why we also know FSD is not ready for prime time. And so until these questions are really answered, it's hard for this thing to be solved. Merv says they can also raise the subscription price. Everyone has been saying this over Twitter over the weekend. This is not a compelling argument to me, because if demand is falling for the actual Tesla, and forget Teslas, for EVs in general, they are not at the liberty where they have the pricing power, especially with high rates, to be able to just increase the subscription prices. Like, especially, it went from 200 for like after the past couple of years, it's been at 200 to 99 2 weeks ago. There's no way in a couple of months, if FSD gets that much better, they wouldn't just want to increase people onto the system by not making the price barrier that high, i.e. raising prices. And there's no way it gets that good to the point where they're like, oh my God, it's worth $500 a month. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So I don't think they're raising subscription prices anytime soon. And as a result of that, if you're paying only $99 a month, it doesn't make sense to me to pay for it full out. And so that's what the big news over the weekend we got in terms of FSD starting to get cut in prices. Now, another piece of news that came out on Friday, but we didn't get to cover it, Cybertrucks also have been recalled. Thanks to a recall of Tesla Cybertrucks, we now know how many of them have actually been delivered, 3,878 since the EV company began releasing them to customers in November. In its third and fourth quarter earnings, Tesla said that its current Cybertruck production capacity was greater than 125K a year. Musk had previously said he expected to produce about 250K Cybertrucks a year by 2025. Either way, that's a lot more than the roughly 775 it's delivered each month so far. Why have Tesla Cybertrucks been recalled? There is something going on with the pedal and brake of the Tesla Cybertruck. I think we watched the video last Thursday, but the videos are getting a little bit more intense based on people that are posting them, that they definitely need to recall and fix some of the issues that are going on with Cybertruck in terms of like how the thing is positioned. It starts getting scratched up very quickly. So those recalls are going to allow Tesla to fix those Cybertrucks, but that also might be a strain on Q2 earnings, given that it might delay future shipments of Cybertrucks. Now, as a result of all the turmoil that's been going on in the world of Tesla, Gary Black tweeted this over the weekend, and I thought this was actually hilarious. I'm going to read his tweet, but one of the quotes is that, "My only regret is I didn't sell all of my Tesla." I thought this was really funny, dude. As soon as I read that, I just started laughing. And like, he's just like, dude, the only regret I have is I didn't get rid of the whole thing. So this is what he says. "We were correct to reduce our Tesla position from 12% to 2.7% today because of our concern about deteriorating fundamentals. In hindsight, we should have sold our entire Tesla position rather than kept a small percentage of it. We were right that cutting prices wouldn't generate much volume growth." He was right about that. "We were right that Tesla needed to start advertising to convince ICE owners to go EV." I don't know if he's right about that, but there is a segment of Tesla bulls saying that advertising probably would have helped versus price cuts. "We were right that FSD would not reach L4, L5 needed to be robotaxis anytime soon." Definitely right about that. "We were right that Tesla needed to prioritize the $25,000 compact car to compete effectively with the Chinese EV makers." I guess he's right on that if robotaxi doesn't become a thing anytime soon. "We were wrong in believing Cybertruck interest would create a halo effect for the entire franchise." He was correct about that. "We were also wrong to believe that Tesla would figure out that cutting prices just causes consumers to wait for more price cuts." Now, as much as he's taking a victory lap, I do want to mention what Gary Black did not mention, which is that it's not like he sold at the top. He still has 1,800 shares of Tesla, and he was selling like from 200 down. So it's not like he was selling at 400, 300, right? Like, it's not like he had this massive, massive time on the top versus the bottom. And he's down like 95% on Rivian. He has 15,000 shares on Rivian, and Rivian is not doing any better than Tesla. So although he is going on the victory lap here, which is, it's just weird because like, why wouldn't you just get rid of the whole position if that's the case, right? Like, why are you even keeping 2% of your position? It's probably because he wants to be able to talk about Tesla because he likes the attention he gets from it. And so like, it's just funny to see how these fund managers think of this. These are the top 10 holdings. If you have a lot of Rivian, I don't think you can complain or you can gloat that much about your Tesla sells. Google, NVIDIA, Eli Lilly, Chart Industries, Airbnb, Chipotle, Uber, Salesforce, and Halo round out his top 10 along with cash. Those are the main holdings in the GK fund, or not GK, Gary Black. GK is, I think, Ross Gerber, but Gary Black's fund, future fund, and Tesla is now not a main position. The point of me bringing this up is that this is what I think a lot of bulls are feeling right now. I talked a lot about it over the weekend, and I got a lot of feedback from different people, and their thoughts were just like, yeah, at the end of the day, if the car is not coming, the $25,000 compact car, then this thing's going to be in a tough position. So here's my final kind of recap on earnings. I don't see a world where the stock inches higher after the call. And unfortunately, these are the scenarios I keep running over my head. Again, we'll be covering it live on the channel tomorrow. And this is what I'm coming to. If Elon says we're pivoting from M2 to get all in on robotaxis, the street won't care. Margins and volumes will go down, so they won't be able to understand robotaxis on a valuation perspective. If Elon says that FSD is becoming really good, but still needs time to become 100% ready, the street is not going to wait around for FSD to get ready. Absent an M2, there's going to be other opportunities. I think a lot of that money honestly might shift into NVIDIA, even at this price, as it's had a 10% correction, lost $230 billion on Friday in market cap. So that's something where the street could sell it off. Energy and charging networks are going to be nothing that moves the numbers. Tesla's not going to CAGR 10% delivery, so EPS estimates are going to go down. China just got price cuts, and now FSD got price cuts. If adoption doesn't rise quickly, meaning if they didn't see, if they don't see increase in FSD adoption, and we'll see that through the FSD miles that are driven. Right now, it's at about 1 billion. We'll see if it can get to 2 billion in a couple months. Based on reducing the prices, the street's not going to believe that consumers actually want FSD, and maybe that's because FSD is not at the right, the right standpoint to be distributed on a mainstream level. Ultimately, I see the pivot to robotaxis for longs as good. I think that's a good thing, but I don't see rate cuts coming soon, which means short-term, it feels like pain. Now, some people are saying, well, wait a second a minute, the stock's already down 40% year to date. As of today, the stock 140, the stock's basically down 44%. That's correct, but it's still more expensive than other Max 7s on a PE basis. Tesla's PE right now is at 34, Google 29. So still being down 44%, Tesla's PE is the higher, and the only way to reduce the PE is for that growth to increase. That growth's not going to increase, or for the stock price to come down. So maybe the PE gets lower as the stock price comes down and it becomes much more attractive, but that just means there's a little bit more short-term pain for Tesla. The one rabbit out of Elon's hat might be Optimus. And I think there's a chance that Optimus, he says, we've made substantial progress. We're already rolling it out to a bunch of factories, and like the delivery estimates are going to increase with Optimus, yada, yada, yada. However, I don't think the street will realistically care until they announce like a major partnership with some company or some warehouse that Optimus is deployed to, which is like, maybe that's the case, but probably not. Granted, I believe the opportunity for longs at $100, which at this point is becoming the consensus, so therefore maybe we don't get $100, but it's becoming consensus based on the people I'm talking to, where they think Tesla's going to. It's going to be the biggest opportunity in the world. I will sell a bunch of my positions to be able to load up on Tesla if it gets that low, even if it gets to 115. I just think that that's going to be stupid, even though it's not stupid, because all of the stuff I just talked about makes sense for why the street is selling it off. But it is stupid from a long-term perspective, just having the opportunity to purchase a company with the potential like Tesla. Doesn't mean it's going to work out the investment, but the potential is what you're betting on when you invest. I think the potential there would be absolutely substantial. So I want to ask the chat, what scenario do you see where the stock price actually holds up post-earnings? A lot of people said, well, it's priced in. I don't think a lot of this stuff is priced in. I mean, maybe some of it's priced in, and maybe if it falls substantially before earnings, it'll get priced in. Right now at $140, down 4.25%, but those numbers are not going to be good. And we know these numbers are not going to be good. The reason I think the stock was holding 170, even though we knew the numbers were bad about 3 weeks ago, was because the FSD progress was so substantial. The street was remembering, oh, this is why we invested. The problem is, as soon as that Reuters article came out about M2 not being prioritized, the street, which is looking at valuation metrics and numbers and is like volumes, margins, et cetera, to be able to justify why this thing is trading 9 times more than GM, you need another car. You need another product to be able to drive that. And the pivot to fully robotaxis, which we don't even know if there's a full pivot yet, but that's what the street is assuming, and we'll see on the earnings call. That is what I think got the street upset. If they were still prioritizing the M2 with robotaxis, which it doesn't seem like Elon wants to do, I don't think the stock would be down 40% year to date, because I think the street would be like, well, why are we selling it off if we know the Model 2 is going to come and people are going to buy this over a Honda Civic because it's a Tesla? Like a $25,000 Tesla is like anyone, like I would buy that. Like people who don't have the highest net worth could still afford that. But if that's not happening and it's balls to the wall, in Elon's words, on autonomy, maybe we're going to see some short-term pain. Crossroads says cost of goods improvement, FSD guidance for revenues, and the M2 actually coming could help the stock. I agree with all those things. And I think two of those things will happen. The last one, I think, is the mystery of if the M2 will actually come. Amit, would you sell Meta to buy Tesla if it gets to 115? Well, it's an interesting question because Meta has 5x since the lows at 88. Tesla at 115 kind of would feel like Meta at 88. The question is, what's your average on Meta, right? Because if you have a juicy average on Meta, then no. Because we'll talk more about Meta later, but I've been doing a little bit more research on them, specifically their AI capabilities that I think we aren't talking about as much in terms of Llama. A new Mark Zuckerberg interview came out over the weekend. Phenomenal interview, really good stuff of him just explaining. Meta is doing what OpenAI was supposed to be doing, which is open sourcing AI platforms and models. So long term, I think Meta is going to win really hard. So if you have a juicy average, no, I would not sell Meta just to get into Tesla. I bought Meta at 127. Yeah, keep that fucking Meta. Dude, this is not financial advice, whatever. But if I were you, I would be. I have so many regrets that I don't have Meta at 127, that I didn't buy Meta, because I like Meta. I've always liked Meta. I never thought Meta was this evil company. I always thought it was good. It's just when it was going up from 88, I kept feeling like it got away from me at 100, then 150, then 200. I'm like, okay, I missed it. Then 250. I'm like, okay, I definitely. Then 300. I'm like, oh man, I really missed it. Then it gets to 500. I'm like, no, I was just being a dumbass. I didn't miss anything if I just understood the opportunity. So I like Meta at 127. We got Vitaly in the chat. Meta is going to win. Interesting. Yes, Meta. We got it. We got to give Vitaly his credit. He's been calling Meta for a very, very long time. And I never disagreed with Vitaly's Meta take. I just was too scared to actually get in at 200, 300, right? But Vitaly, shout out to him, dude. When it gets to 88, he has a substantial Meta position. He DCA'd into a high quality company. And that's why he's able to reap the benefits of Meta. Amazing stuff. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. That's the Tesla preview. If you're just joining, FSD got cut. Not really looking good for demand. Li Auto's down 9% this morning. NIO's down. And then Tesla right here, unfortunately, it is down as well, $140. One really last thing I'll say on Tesla. Elon had this tweet over the weekend that I thought was just it was the best tweet Elon could put out. It was hilarious to see. And it's a little depressing, but it's also it's the reason why Elon is Elon. So someone said NVIDIA lost $230 billion in market cap on Friday, and Elon responds with rookie numbers. I mean, I mean, what else can you do? You got it's rookie numbers. Elon's basically saying, oh, that's nothing. I'm down 400 billion this year. It's hilarious. And to me, this is why I love Elon, because at the end of the day, you have to laugh through the hardships and keep building when you have a vision. Now, granted, if you're part of that 400 billion that was lost this year, it probably doesn't feel the best, but still, for a guy to just joke about it like this, it makes you think maybe he does have some plan to get this thing back to good, or he just doesn't care and he's just going to keep doing what he does, and shareholders are going to have to put up with it. And if shareholders have to put up with it, then it is what it is. FSD got cut. Yes, $8,000 versus $12,000. The price cut happened over the weekend, and that's one of the main updates we saw for FSD. Vince says, what a boss. Yeah, dude, when I saw the tweet, I was just like, this is the most boss thing ever. This is the most boss thing ever. So we'll see what happens with Tesla. I'll be covering it live tomorrow. I have some special guests joining with me on the show. And yeah, we'll discuss Tesla. We will discuss Tesla and all the juicy stuff in the world of Tesla. Tomorrow's earnings are going to be the biggest earnings, I think. Tomorrow's earnings are going to be really big. It's going to determine a lot. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens, and we will keep going from there. Okay, we'll talk about Palantir next. Real quick, let me do one announcement on my side, and then we will do Palantir earnings, or not Palantir earnings, but a cool thing I found out about Palantir this morning in regards to Germany. So over the weekend, I announced something on Twitter. It is officially live. I started a VC fund. Now, I know as soon as I say this, you guys are like, Amit, what the fuck? How does it what are you talking about? This is the most random thing ever. How is this happening? Me and Derek, friend of the channel, you guys know him pretty well. Derek and I had this idea for the past couple months after we did the figure deal together. And he came to me with this idea, which was like, hey, your community is really special. And obviously, you've built a really good bond with your community. I have a lot of connections, and I also have a lot of capital from Derek's perspective because he's been pretty successful in his life. So what if we just start a fund together? I'll provide the capital, you provide the marketing and distribution, and let's see if we can find the next Instagram, next Google, next Facebook. But if we do find the next Instagram, Google, or Facebook, let's let your community have a chance to invest at the earliest stages. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. So the fund is in stealth, but has already deployed capital against 3 deals. One of those deals is in public, Figures A, Series B. You guys all know about that. 2 other deals that are really exciting. We haven't disclosed yet. One of them is closing on their Series A probably in the next month, and then we'll be able to disclose it. And the other one is pre-seed, and it's really, really exciting. That one eventually will be disclosed probably over the next year. So eventually the goal is to use the funds to bring deals to people who are part of our joint community to invest at the earliest stage. So why am I saying this right now? If you are watching the show, you kept up with the channel, you've been engaging with the content, and you are a founder, you know someone who's a founder, you know a friend who's working on the next like coffee shop on the weekends, right? The next Starbucks franchise, you know a friend who's in college who's trying to build the next big AI super platform. Email amitderekfund@gmail.com with pitch decks or metrics. You're going to get a response probably in a week or 2. You're not going to get ghosted. You'll get a response relatively quick. Probably we'll set up a meeting with you if it's a very interesting idea, and reach out. No ideas crazy. SaaS, B2B, consumer, fintech, CPG are all fine. Only verticals we probably won't touch are medical and government. Derek has been a VC for over 30 years. He's seen a lot of deals over the weekend, and I'll explain what kind of prompted this over the weekend, but he's seen a lot of deals and he understands how to analyze deals. I'm still learning how to analyze deals. He's kind of really teaching me how to look at a deal and really analyze if it's worth, anything from an investment perspective. And so it'll be exciting. We already got like 7 pitches over the weekend. Some of these companies are incredibly exciting. And so I've got a lot of work to do to be able to go through these pitches. But the reason this prompted this over the weekend is because I saw an app on Twitter that went viral, 100,000 downloads over the past couple of days. And so I reached out to the founder. This was like Friday night. And I said, hey, are you guys raising? And they said yes. And I was like, okay, so I don't have the capital to invest in this deal, but I know someone who has a decent amount of capital. So send me the pitch deck. And we sent me the pitch. And then I got on Zoom with Derek for about a couple hours and we just went through the pitch. I was excited about the idea. Derek kind of ruthlessly destroyed the idea relatively quickly. It shows me I have a lot to learn when it comes to analyzing ideas from a venture scale perspective. But that's the fun thing about this, because he has a lot of experience looking at these deals. I bring a little bit different of a perspective when it comes to analyzing deals. And so that's why I think if we can get the marketing correct, we might be able to find some really good deals. I know everyone's saying, oh, this is an awesome announcement. This is super cool. Good luck. Like, this is great. Like, so happy you're doing this. And yes, all of that makes a lot of sense. And it's like, it's awesome that we're starting this. The problem is starting something doesn't really matter unless you find good deals. In the VC world, you have to really have good connections to find founders that have ideas. And then those founders have to let you invest in their ideas. Because the odds are, if you're a really good founder, a really good idea, you can get money from everywhere. Money is a commodity at that point. So this is going to take a lot of networking on my front to be able to find people that have really good ideas. And the coolest thing is that we have this community here. So if anyone has those ideas and wants to reach out and bring them to light, you will guaranteed get a response, and we will see, any ideas that exist in the world and keep going from there. So super, super exciting stuff. And it's going to be fun to see how it goes from there. Matt says, what was the app? Okay. So I'm not going to say the name of the app, but the reason I got excited for it, it was an Indian dating app. Okay. It came across my feed. It was an Indian dating app. There was a dating app made for South Asians. And I was like, oh, I'm Indian. It's a dating app. So I got excited. And then it went viral over the weekend. I was like, oh shit, they're getting a lot of downloads. And then we saw the pitch, and yeah, unfortunately, the pitch just was not that good. Like the market, we really broke down what is this the next $1 billion idea? It's like probably not, So that is what we're doing. That's what got me really excited about it. But I was like, oh, Indian dating app. Like, I'm Indian. Like, dating apps. There's not really that many good dating apps for Indians. But in general, not the best idea. And so we broke it down. But the point is, it triggered us to be able to think, what other ideas are out there that we can go find. And that's what we're doing. Now, the funny, ironic thing about this is Derek, you guys know Derek, he's well connected in the VC space. He could get deals tomorrow, right? If he wanted to get deal flow, he can text like 2 people and get thousands of deals tomorrow. The fun thing about this is that we're doing this together as a community. And so if we find deals from the community and then those deals are good, we can actually vet those deals and then present them to everybody else. So for those that are saying, hey, can we invest in the fund? There's no investing in the fund, but if we find an opportunity that's vetted, we can present it. And for those that are accredited, you guys can invest in the deal with us, which is the entire goal of this fund. That's why he wanted to do it. And so it's going to be super exciting to see how it plays out. What about a dating app for pets? Yeah, maybe not. maybe not the best idea. Derek realized he messed up when the first one you brought him was an Indian dating guy. It was so funny. I was like, Derek, this is such a good idea. And then he was like, I'm sorry to burst your bubbles. This is not a good idea, which he's right, dude. Like, at the end of the day, it's a knockoff on Tinder and Hinge with like, it's a feature, not an app, you know, and a lot of products end up being features, not products, which is why it's hard to find really good deals. But anyway, that's the update. If you have a deal, send it to us. We'll go through it and we'll bring these deals to the community. Again, no one can invest in the fund because the fund is not like really investable. We're not raising money because, again, we don't really need the money. It's like Derek has the money. The capital is there. The question is, can we bring the deals to you guys to be able to invest? Which I also think is another really good thing about the fund. We are not asking people for money, right? Like the money, we don't need to raise money for the fund. The money's there. We want to bring opportunity because Derek, honestly, like, believe it or not, he's just a really good guy and he loves this community and he wants to bring early stage opportunities to people that want to take a risk on them. And so that's why we're doing it. And so it'll be super, super fun over the coming months as we do it. All right, so that was the update from me in the context of this VC fund. Now, next thing we got to talk about is Palantir. So I paid this German subscription thing over the weekend, or like literally this morning, to because they released an article on Palantir. And this article was incredibly interesting. I'll talk more about it over Daily Palantir when that'll be out a little bit later throughout the day. But I thought this is something we all need to keep an eye on. So we've been talking about Germany and Palantir, but this article shed new light on what's happening in the world when it comes to Germany and Palantir. So 3 things. First of all, the Handelsblatt, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but that's the German media publication, 20 million monthly readers on this thing. So this is a pretty big publication, seems very credible. They published 3 interesting facts about Palantir that I think a lot of us didn't know about. Number 1, in 2022, the platform dismantled a network of Reich citizens, which are also known as neo-Nazis. I didn't know that. We did know that Palantir prevented a terrorist attack back in 2018, but the article reinstated how important that terrorist attack and stopping that terrorist attack was. Why is this relevant right now? Because terrorist threats in Germany are starting to increase, and as a result of that, some officials want to get Palantir back because of what they did in 2018. Number 2, the platform was used 14,500 times in 2022. I mean, that's really interesting, dude. I did not know the platform was used almost 15,000 times in 2022 alone to be able to recognize and analyze a ton of data that was coming out and do pattern recognition. So that was another really important thing. And then third, this was newly revealed in the article. The investigating authorities of North Rhine-Westphalia, NRW, are also enthusiastic. There, the Palantir platform is called Cross-Database Analysis and Research and is used daily. With the help of the DAR system, police officers have recognized the planned attack on the Ron Bosco Gymnasium in Essen and successfully prevented it. North Rhine-Westphalia Interior told Handelsblatt about a success that has not yet been publicly known, which means an attack was going to happen on a gymnasium in this part of Germany, and Palantir software, which is known as the Cross Database Analysis and Research DAR platform, is used daily, and it stopped that from happening. This is a really, really big deal. Many high-level officials in Germany are campaigning to bring the platform back and make it available nationwide. Unfortunately, Nancy Faeser rejected the nationwide introduction. She's the Minister of the Interior, with the idea of building their own version of Palantir. What is the implication of this on investors? I believe Germany is going to come around. This is the 3rd article in 3 weeks from German media publications that have talked about this. To me, why does that matter? Because this wasn't just like a one-off clickbait article that was in some random German newspaper. These are multiple media publications in the country of Germany that are saying, hey, we need to further the discussion on Palantir. And this is a publication, again, that gets 20 million readers every single month. So it's not like, this is some random German blog. This is a legit publication that's trying to get the word out when it comes to Palantir. I imagine Karp and the team are monitoring the situation closely, and I think we really need to keep an eye on what's happening in Germany. Why? Because if we can reaccelerate government growth, specifically international government growth, that is a catalyst I don't think the street has priced in. Palantir up about 1% in the pre-market, given if we get Germany back. Now, again, Germany about a year ago said, this was about May of 2023, we don't want Palantir, we're building our own shit. Almost a year later, it's going to be May in about 10 days. It seems like high-level officials realized that was the wrong decision. And they always knew that was the wrong decision, but the German bureaucratic politics didn't allow them to ultimately make the decision. So I think this is incredibly interesting in the world of Palantir. I think it's a catalyst that's important. Let's talk a little bit about the stock. Palantir right now, stock is at $20.64. Could it go below 20? Yes. One thing that's important to understand from a technical perspective when it comes to some of the stuff we're seeing on the indices, the RSI is officially oversold on the NASDAQ, the QQQ. RSI being at about 29 right now. NASDAQ right here up a little bit, 417 in the pre-market. So what does that mean? The NASDAQ 100 represents tech stocks. Palantir, not one of the biggest tech stocks, but it is a tech stock. If we see a bit of a rebound this week on tech stocks, I would likely see that Palantir thrives with that rebound as well. Now, maybe that's a dead cat bounce, and we'll see if that ends up being the case. But Palantir right now, $45 billion market cap. They've got earnings in about 2 weeks. If the NASDAQ itself starts to bounce, the S&P as well, bouncing in the pre-market, I could see Palantir bouncing as well. S&P right now at 498. Why is Palantir down below 22, 23? I think this is all technical and macro driven. I do not think this is fundamentally driven. Palantir got a Titan contract, $178 million 3 weeks ago. Oracle partnership, very big deal. The street took it up 5% on that Oracle partnership. The partnerships that we're getting with Ukraine. I mean, the deal after deal after deal from a government and from a commercial perspective is going in Palantir's favor. And it's going in Palantir's favor in a really big way. We're seeing boot camps in Italy. We're seeing boot camps in Zurich. We're seeing boot camps in India. We're seeing boot camps in London, like boot camps. The go-to-market strategy is also expanding very well internationally. The reason why it's down, to me, is because of the macro. If the S&P falls another 5%, Palantir is going to $17. It is what it is. That is not a big deal to me. That's actually a gift for longs, quite frankly. Like Tesla's going down because everything sucks. So when Tesla bulls are like, oh, this is a gift for longs, you don't know if that gift you're going to open up and there's a gift inside of the gift and then open up, there's a gift. Like there might be a lot of gifts inside of that gift before you get to the final gift. Palantir, I think it's more of a gift because all the fundamentals are shooting in the right direction, like almost all of them. The company has $4 billion in cash, right? I think things are going very well for the company, but the macro is bad. And if the macro is bad, stocks are going to fall. It's algorithmically driven at this point, which I think is not going to be the worst thing in the world of Palantir. Crossroads says the daily Palantir RSI is also oversold, usually bounces near here. Yep, that is correct. I think under 20 is very possible, but if it goes under 20, I do think that is a decent opportunity as well. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what happens for Palantir. This Germany news, I think, is getting more and more interesting by the day in terms of how they're interacting with Palantir. And again, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this is the third media publication in 3 weeks that's talking about Palantir. I don't think they're doing it for clicks at this point. I think a lot of these media publications have relationships with governmental officials. A lot of times government influence the type of articles that come out. Not saying they're forcing them to release these publications. But if you get anonymous tips from high-level ranking government officials saying, hey, we really need this company back in our use and our bureaucratic government is not doing anything about it, can you get the word out? Those sources remain anonymous. It creates juicy content for the blogs or for the publications, but also those publications get real sources, right? They're getting high-level officials that actually want this stuff to get done, which is why it becomes a story. And then if it keeps becoming a story, hopefully action gets taken. And I think Palantir is monitoring that situation very well as well. Coles partnership in Australia. Yep, that was amazing back in February. I mean, deal upon deal upon deal. I think Palantir, quite frankly, someone was asking me over the weekend, I think it's the company with the biggest moat in the stock market. I really do. I think it is the company with the largest moat in the stock market. I don't think the market has priced that in, which is okay. The market shouldn't be pricing it in right now because growth is not above 20%. That's the one bad thing about the company. If they can change that to 25% by the end of the year, I think this is going to be very exciting. But when it comes to moats, there's Tesla, there's Palantir, there's NVIDIA, and obviously Tesla and NVIDIA are in their own world. But when I think about what companies have real moats that can be defended over the next 10 years, I think it's Palantir. And it's going to be exciting to see how it plays out. I mean, what are your thoughts on Eli Lilly? I like Eli Lilly. I do think I missed the run. I think a lot of us missed the run on this company. Eli Lilly, year to date, let's check that one. That's up 50%, right? Or something. It's up 22%. Yeah, it's up a lot. Market cap right now for this bad boy is $700 billion. Ozempic is what did really well for them, right? And a lot of people have started to use that drug. I don't really know that much about the fundamentals. I like it, but if it's already up 22% year to date and their biggest catalyst has already come out, then it's a question of can that catalyst continue to produce revenues, which is Ozempic, which I think it will, but I just don't know enough about that yet to make a decision if I would buy it. But Eli Lilly, very popular company and one of the bigger companies in the S&P and in the S&P 500 writ large as well. Okay, so that is the update on Palantir and Tesla. If you're just joining, Tesla cut prices for FSD over the weekend. That's why the stock is down right now. And at Palantir, some interesting stuff happened in the world of Germany for Palantir. More German officials want the company, which is why we're seeing some broader need for Palantir to come to Germany, or for Palantir to potentially come to Germany. Let's talk a little bit about those Tesla price cuts again and get an update on that, and not just on FSD, but on overall cars. And then we'll go on to some more macro news.
Well, we know it's going to be pretty poor relative to what Tesla has done in the past. So does anybody really need to see it? Yeah, they do need to see it. The estimate is for a profit of 49 cents a share. But if it comes in shy of that, that's not what's going to be driving the stock lower. By the way, we expect first year-over-year decline in revenue in 4 years. Just over $25 billion is expected in revenue. The focus is going to be on the conference call and on the guidance. So gross margins in the first quarter, they're expected to come in down about 15.9%. But if it's lower than that, I've talked to a number of analysts who said, look, it could be down around 14.5%. That's not what's going to move the stock much lower. It's the guidance for the second quarter and for 2024 specifically. What does Elon Musk say about small car production plans? Is it gone completely, or is it simply taking a backseat to robo-taxi plans? In terms of deliveries, the small car does matter because the growth trajectory in terms of annual deliveries, that's what's been driving the stock. Really, over the last 6-7 years, people have been saying, well, look, they're going to grow annual deliveries by 50% every year. Nobody thinks that's possible anymore, at least not in the near term. The delivery estimate, by the way, for 2024, just under 1.9 million vehicles. They delivered 1.81 million last year. And if you take a look at shares of Tesla over the last 2 years, look at what I was talking about. If you go back to July, it's a little bit hard to see here, but basically the stock has been cut in half. It's down to 143. I think it was up at about 290, 288, 290, something like that last July. And as you mentioned, guys, they are coming real close as the stock continues to fall and the market cap continues to fall.
ExxonMobil is now more valuable than Tesla, which is just insane. I mean, that even a stat like that is absolutely insane to say. ExxonMobil has now a higher market cap than Tesla. Tesla right now, market cap $468 billion. That's going to come down as soon as the market opens. Exxon is higher than Tesla. Right now, their market cap is $474. Now, what's going to be interesting as well, Exxon has earnings this week. Tesla has earnings this week as well. Oil prices have gone up, which has been really good for Exxon and a lot of these oil companies. But the good news, at least for inflation, is that oil prices are starting to come down. So let's transition to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of the macro economy. Oil prices are down. Now, why are oil prices down? There's two reasons. Number one, we've had a little bit more excess inventory. As you can see right here, oil prices down almost 2%. Really, really good news to see. I mean, this is we want to see oil prices start to come down. Excess inventory, increased demand or decreased demand, along with Iran actually exporting 1.5 million barrels a day. That's been really important to get oil to come down. However, another important thing is that Iran today said, and I quote, Israel has faced enough punishment, basically implying that they're done, right? So Iran basically said out today, all right, like Israel has been punished enough, and they've admitted that they're kind of done, doing this tick for tack that they're doing with Israel. So that was positive to see as well. And as soon as Iran said that this morning, I mean, you can't make this up. As soon as Iran put out that statement that they're done basically messing with Israel for now, we'll see what happens over the coming months. But for now, it seems like this pseudo World War III crisis is done. Gold went down 1.16% and Bitcoin went up. I mean, you cannot make this up. If there's any question about gold or Bitcoin being the hedge against World War III, the answer is gold. Like, it's just not Bitcoin. Gold is the reserve where people go to flock when they think World War III is going to happen. Gold literally went down when Iran said, hey, we're done. We're not going to be worried. We're not going to attack these guys anymore. Bitcoin went up because it was more of a little bit of a risk-on environment. I think unequivocally, we can tell that Bitcoin does not thrive when geopolitical events happen, which is, I wish the Bitcoin bulls would just admit it. They're trying to make up all these excuses for why Bitcoin didn't go up when Israel got attacked 2 weekends ago. And it's like, no. Like, people they don't trust Bitcoin when shit goes south. They trust gold. Well, if things aren't going south, meaning we have relatively, we have some peace, Bitcoin should do well. So I guess Bitcoin does depend, and we'll talk about the halving in a second, about having some geopolitical stability over the next coming months in order for the halving to actually have impacts to make the thing go up. But for now, it's at least good that Iran said they're not going to continue to attack. 10-year is higher. So this is where I think we really need to shift our attention to as well. The 2-year is at 5%. Fed's funds rate at 5.5%. So the 2-year is telling the Fed's funds rate that you have room to cut. You have some room to be able to come down. The 10-year is kind of telling the Fed, oh, we don't really have that much room to cut, because the 10-year starts inching as high as the Fed's funds rate, then that means the Fed might have to start raising rates even higher, which I don't think is going to happen. And oil coming down is going to be good to at least get CPI to marginally start to go down. Hopefully that trend continues. But this 10-year being at this level, quite frankly, and I think pretty much everyone can agree, it is really good that on Friday we saw the market take a massive haircut. And the reason I say it's really good is because if the 10-year is pushing 4.7, there's no world in which you could logically justify the S&P still being up as much as it was. I mean, the S&P was at 525. The S&P was up 12% year to date. You can't do that with the 10-year at 4.7, with CPI still at 3.5. So I think the haircut we saw a full 6% pullback. 10% is where we get a correction. And look, maybe we're headed for the correction. But that 6% pullback, I think, is very reasonable. And I think it honestly made a lot of sense. And I think it makes these companies look a lot more attractive when it comes to being able to buy them before earnings. Nvidia right now up 2% in the pre-market. I think all of us are a little bit more humbled and like happy that Nvidia is not at 950, not because we want to see Nvidia come down, but because Nvidia at 975, 950, it just feels like there's too much froth there. It feels like it's not putting up the numbers to justify those insane metrics, even though the numbers are very good. Being at 78 or 778 makes a little bit more sense going into earnings. On top of that, on Friday, which was the weirdest thing we saw, SMCI fell 24%. Now, why did SMCI fall 24%? Which is actually kind of scary to think about. They usually release preliminary earnings before they have their earnings come out. They chose to forego. They pulled a Netflix, right? They're just not disclosing subscribers. So they're like, yeah, we're just not going to disclose this. That's a little weird. And I think the street was like, okay, if you're not disclosing this, do you have something that you're not giving to us that we need to pay more attention to on earnings that we need to be scared about? And whether that's true or not, we'll see in the coming week as SMCI puts out earnings. But that is what got the street also a little upset. And that just created a cascading effect that led to Nvidia falling, AMD falling, all these companies falling. Granted, these companies falling, I think, provides a good opportunity, and it's a much needed dip. But that's one thing that we saw in the world of SMCI as well. But the 30-year mortgage is also closer to the 8% rather than under 7.5%. Yes, that's also not very good. And that mortgage being higher, along with auto insurance going higher, again, both bad for inflation. So we really need something to break in terms of, when I mean break, come down. And oil has been the only thing that has started to come down a little bit more. Where do you think SMCI will be headed this week? Honestly, dude, when it comes to the semis, I have no idea how to give a prediction on these guys. I want to think they're due for a bounce because the technicals show that the entire market's a bit oversold from an RSI perspective, but I don't know. Like, does the market by Wednesday just feel like, you know what, we're going to wait until they put up the numbers. We're not going to give them the premium, especially given that we usually tend to sell off going into May. Given you brought that question up, let me show a chart that I think is also really interesting here when it comes to the market. So usually when the S&P has gone up 5% or more over the course of Q1, we tend to sell off until early June before we rally again historically. So here this chart shows you the S&P performance 5% greater in Q1. We end up finishing the year, especially when it's an election year, 12.5, 12.7. So on an election year, historically, the S&P finishes 12.75%, especially when it's up 5% or more in Q1. We were already up 12% in Q1, which is why we've seen this correction, right? And so it makes a lot of sense. If you can see the blue line, which is 2024, and then election year, it's basically following almost the exact same track. So we'll see a little bit of a bounce here from the blue line. Then we'll probably bottom out around mid-June. And then by the end of the year, so talk about November, December, we should see a nice rally, especially as Q2 earnings goes well. And then hopefully inflation comes down to that somewhat close to 2% level that the Fed is looking for. So it's actually very reasonable to see what we're seeing right now. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Question is going to be what stocks are going to be able to outperform in the midst of a little bit of a sell-off. And I think the Bitcoin miners, which we'll talk about after the bell, are showing some signs of life given that Bitcoin halving event has happened now as well. FYI, a gymnasium means high school in Germany. Oh, wow. Interesting. I didn't know that. I thought a gymnasium actually means like a place where you work out. Cool. So thank you for letting us know that, Brett. Gymnasium means high school. And the reason he's saying that is because Palantir protected a gymnasium from getting under attack as per a new article this week, or this morning that came out, which is really interesting. And it's the reason why I think Palantir will continue to eventually be back in Germany full-time. All right, we've got 30 seconds until we do the cowbell, so get ready. We got the market ready to open. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope you all have had a great weekend. We are back for the market open because the stock market is back, and we've got to analyze what will be one of the most exciting weeks so far this year. Lots of earnings this week. We'll talk about an earnings preview with Meta, Microsoft, Google, Spotify, all those guys. And then obviously Big Daddy Tesla tomorrow is going to be a big one. Thank you everybody for being here. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here you go. Tesla, 4.39% down on the day. Tesla is down 6 cents away from below 140. Below 140. It's there at 140. Wow, look at that. Oh, there you go. Below 140. Tesla, well, it's fighting above 140. So there's a lot of buy orders coming in at that 140 strike while it's trying to fend itself away from the 139s. We saw 139 for like a millisecond. That is psychologically not good to see below 139. I don't think any institutional or retail investor wants to see Tesla below 140. There you go. It's fighting for 141, down now only 4% versus down 5%. We'll get back to that in a second. S&P is green, 497 on the S&P. We got a nice bounce on the S&P. SMCI green, up 2%. NVIDIA green, up 2%. Verizon is up 2% on their earnings. Real quick, let me just give you their numbers. EPS on Verizon, the street was expecting 112. They came in with 115. They beat by 3%. Revenue, the street was expecting 33.2. The street, they came in with 32.9. Slight miss by 0.78% on revenue, but overall their subscribers grew for their mobile phone subscriptions. $41, up 2.67% on Verizon. TFC, I'll talk about them in a little bit. They came in a little bit lower on the revenue expectations, which is why they're down 2% right now. Robinhood, back above $17, up 2.53%. SL Green, 49.58. Google is green, 156. Celsius is green. Wow, up 5% on the day. Celsius is now green. Took a nice little beating over the past couple of days. CleanSpark, we'll talk about the miners in a second. 1783, they're up 4%. Alibaba's up 1%. The CCP has banned Apple from allowing WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram, which are the three biggest messaging applications on the planet, from being in their app store. Now, you might be saying, oh, those apps were already banned. They were, but if you had a VPN, you could easily access them. The CCP on Friday, I didn't get to cover this news, so I was reading about it this morning, officially said, Apple, you got to get rid of these apps. So even if you have a VPN, you cannot access those messaging apps on the planet. And Tim Cook said, yes, sir, we will do what you need us to do. ARM, 91. Wow. 5% bounce on ARM. Now, ARM had a nice haircut on Friday, which deservedly so. I don't know if it's at fair value right now. I think 70 is more reasonable for ARM. Remember, they IPO'd at 50, but ARM is down from 160 to 90. Netflix continues to fall. Netflix had a great earnings, but I think they messed up with this whole subscriber thing and not disclosing these numbers. I think they didn't need to do that. I think they could have easily said, hey, we're going to disclose the numbers, but just don't care about them that much. And investors would have been like, okay, we're competent enough to realize that your business is mature. We don't need to care about the metric too much. But them hiding it, I think, got investors scared. Now, let's see if that dip gets bought up, but it's down almost 12%, or actually 15% from the earnings. CRM up 2.77%. Where's Palantir? Let's see Palantir. Palantir 2069. Palantir up 1% on the day. Where's Tesla? Tesla 139. There you go. There you go. Tesla's below 140. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Tesla is below $140. Who would have thought at the beginning of this year Tesla would be down 100 or Tesla would be down below 140. It was at 290 to start the year, I think 270-ish. Here you go. Tesla right now down 5.2%. And again, it's not that crazy to see this decline because of the stuff we talked about in the beginning of the show. FSD is not ready. Robotaxi is not ready. M2, if it's being scrapped, the street's going to get very upset. Optimus, there's no real hope for that right now. Maybe in the future, which probably will be in the future, but not right now. And then energy and supercharging stations are not going to move the numbers. EPS estimates are going to go lower. Let me read you the EPS estimates for Tesla on earnings and the revenue. So the street is expecting 51 cents a share. That's down from Q3 or Q4 earnings at 71 cents. And the street's expecting 21 billion in revenue. That's down 4 billion from 25 billion, which is what they reported in Q4. So we already know the numbers are going to suck. The only thing that saves this stock, from my perspective, is if Elon can convince the street that autonomy is closer than it's ever been. And he's himself said he's the boy who cried FSD, a play on the term, cried wolf. And so I don't know if the street would believe him. No Optimus for Optimus. I'm very optimistic on Optimus. I think a lot of people in the chat here believe in a robotics future. It's just the street can't build it into their valuation models yet. There's just no way for them to do it. And you can't blame them. I mean, like, it's not real yet, right? At this point, you are buying it just with the hope that it would happen, which if it gets to an attractive enough price, hope is fine, because if you got time on your side and you believe in Elon as someone who can execute, then you can wait. The problem is if your entry price was, 240, 250, 260, just to break even, things got to go up 100%, which is not easy, right? Stock goes down 50%. You have to wait till it goes up 100% just to break even. So right here, I think the entry is going to be very exciting as it gets lower, if it gets lower. But the short term is still going to have a ton of pain for Tesla. Robinhood falling 1677. So it seems like market's taking a little bit of a breather. It was just at 1705. S&P right now, yep, 497. QQQ 416. Yep, that one. You have a nice little red candle. So markets are still green, but they are selling off. Markets are still green, but they are selling off. NVIDIA at 169. It was at 2% just a minute ago. Marathon's at 1%. CleanSpark, wow, CleanSpark was up 3%. Now it's up 0.5%. Same thing with Celsius. Celsius was up 5%. Now it's up 2%. So markets are selling off after the rip in the first 5 minutes. It wasn't a big rip, but still 5% on some of these stocks was good. Even Palantir was up 1%. Now it's barely up. So we'll see if this whole thing turns negative. SMCI below 700. There you go. Okay, so SMCI falling right now, I think starts to signal that maybe semis are going to get hit. Enphase at 105. Wow, Enphase at 105. Shout out to TJ. He's got some covered calls at 130 strike on Enphase expiring this week. He's going to collect a nice $50,000 if Enphase is below 130 on Friday. And we'll talk about that on our podcast that we do on Friday at 12 p.m. So I think that covered call strategy will work well for TJ. Enphase now at 106. They have earnings the same day as Tesla as well. That usually doesn't happen. Enphase and Tesla at the same time. So, Enphase, I think their guidance is going to suck. I think their profitability is going to suck. Their gross margins are going to suck. And I think Enphase might have some pain. Now, the thing is they fell so dramatically over the past year that I actually don't know how much more of a bottom they have, but we saw this thing go to 72 back in October. Wouldn't it be crazy if it hits the low 90s again, just given, that things aren't getting any better and rate cuts aren't coming anytime soon. Tesla now above 140, trying to rebound here, but still struggling at this level. Netflix down 1.32%. SoFi 712. SoFi's green. I think SoFi's going to have a good earnings. I think they're going to have a good earnings. I think April 29th, so about 7 days from now, they will crush on Monday. I'll be here live. And I think we get a pump. I'm starting to feel we're not going to get a big pump given this macro is tough. And if they don't really hit it out of the park, we're not going to get like a substantial pump. Like if it pumps to $8, that would be exciting. But like my base case is 950-ish, 970-ish. I think they can pump to if they crush, especially because profitability is going to be higher than the estimates. That's the real reason I'm saying this, because they did that convertible debt, which is going to make their net income better. But if Noto doesn't really make people feel like SoFi is a winner, I don't know how long that pump's going to last. Don't know how pump that is going to last. Don't know how long that's going to last. Okay, Bitcoin at 65,000. So this halving event happened over the weekend. The halving is now done. So this thing that we've been waiting for has happened. Nothing really exciting happened when Bitcoin halved. I mean, it did its thing. It did go up over the weekend. So Bitcoin went from about 63-ish to 66 this morning, which was nice. I mean, it was cool. I'm waiting for Bitcoin to actually like show some real signs of life. And on Twitter, I'm just like always complaining, like, why won't this thing go up? And everyone's like, you don't understand Bitcoin. You're so immature. You don't get. I'm like, dude, it's a joke. Like obviously, this thing's not going to go up randomly. But I am waiting like a child for this stupid thing to go up because like let's make it happen, dude. Everyone was talking about this halving event. Let's do this halving event. Let's make this thing move. Interestingly enough, Bitcoin prices and transaction fees have come down after the halving. So this was released this morning. After the halving, fees spiked to $146 for a medium priority transaction and $170 for a high priority transaction in the context of Bitcoin. So on-chain data basically shows that the medium priority transactions are now costing $848, while high priority transactions cost $932. So we're seeing the halving event create the ability for prices to come down. Now, right after the halving event, literally hours before, those fees spiked to $146 versus $170, which are 20 times X the amount that people are paying right now, which is $848 and $932. So people were freaking out like, oh my God, because the halving event happened, now these transaction fees are going so high. Peter Schiff was saying this is why Bitcoin is useless, because when the transaction fees go this high, you can't even use the thing now that the halving event has happened. But now we're seeing the halving event is actually leading to prices to come down in the context of the network fees, which is a good thing, which is a very good thing. It is good for the miners in particular, as Crossroads is mentioning right now, which is why the miners were up, because miners benefit a lot off of the fees. And I am starting to feel more and more that the miner space, we're going to see some consolidation. I don't know if all these miners last. CleanSpark is negative right now. Hut 8 mining is up. Marathon is up. Ride is up. MicroStrategy up right now, 6%, because Bitcoin has gone up over the weekend. But I do think that if the miners can't effectively do what they need to do to keep up, meaning if Bitcoin does not run up over the next few months and the miners are not able to stay in business because the 50% of their business has gone down, they're going to have to start selling some Bitcoin. Then we're going to see some consolidation. And if that consolidation happens within a few companies, if you have your bets on the right horses, then maybe those horses end up doing very well. The only horse I would personally bet on is CleanSpark. It's the only one that I think makes a lot of sense to me when it comes to the mining space. And I trust their management. So we'll see what happens right now. But Bitcoin has performed nicely over the weekend. The question now is just if it can keep running higher. And I think honestly, what makes it run higher is we get into a risk on environment, and that might take rate cuts coming down, which means maybe September that happens. Matterport is halted. Matterport is halted right now. Is it getting halted because it's getting bought out? Is that what's happening? Matterport buyout. Who's buying out Matterport? Is that happening? Oh, wow. Yeah. CoStar is acquiring Matterport. Matterport, from my understanding, is the 3D like housing real estate company where you can like use their software to like look at a house inside. Matterport's being sold at $1.6 billion, $5.50 a share. Matterport stockholders will receive $275 in cash and $275 of CoStar. Okay, so Matterport is $1.70 right now, which means it's being traded at about a 3x premium. So that's not bad. Now, granted, Matterport was like $20 in 2021, but granted, things have changed. If you own Matterport, you are 3xing if you got an entry or you're at least 2xing if you got an entry below $2, which is not bad. Matterport's been a penny stock for a very long time. CoStar is a share price of 86.02. So you're going to get the symmetrical collar-based 275 worth of CoStar and then 275 in cash if you have Matterport. Can the share price go above 5.5? To my understanding, no. Once an acquisition happens, it cannot go above. I mean, technically, could it go above? I think so, but historically, that has not happened with an acquisition. We don't even know if it's going to go to the full 5.5, right? Because the street might have a little bit of doubts if the deal goes through, which I don't think that would be the case. So maybe it's like hovering at that 5.5 level. But I don't think it goes above the acquisition price as well. Can you buy it now? Well, J Duff, you absolutely could buy Matterport right now. The problem is that the damn thing is halted. So the reason it's halted is because usually the SEC does this stuff when an acquisition happens, right? To be able to like navigate the whole thing that's going on this morning. So you're probably not going to be able to buy it. And even if it wasn't halted, it would probably be very hard because it would just shoot up immediately to the price. Let's see. I mean, it should be unhalted soon. It's halted in the first 12 minutes of the market open. So I imagine that as soon as it unhalted, it spikes up to 550. But shout out to Matterport shareholders. If you got Matterport shareholders, then there you got some money. You got a nice little acquisition. Sundeep says, "Hey Amit, can you please pronounce name Dakash, which I'm thinking to put as my son's name? Thanks." Okay, Daksh is Dakish. If you had the A after the K, I would say Dakash, which I think is a normal Indian name. I don't know how to pronounce Daksh. I know I'm Indian, but I'm not the best at that name. So I would say Daksh, maybe that's how you say the name, but Dakash is what I would have gone for. Chris Patel says it can because of CoStar share values. Okay, interesting. So because you're getting a little bit of CoStar, maybe Matterport goes up. But Chris Patel says it's unlikely. What happens to Matterport options? Well, I mean, I think I don't know quite frankly. If you had a $5 strike, well, first of all, you get in the money, right? If you had $5 calls on Matterport, I mean, you get to cash out. That's what the options would expire. And if you're in the money, then I believe you get to cash out on the options. But I've never had options on a stock that gets acquired the same day. So actually, I'm not sure. But it seems like it's going to go well. I know Jesse did buy a ton of Matterport. He got that one really right. I don't know if he still owns it, but I think he made a video where he bought like 13,000 shares of Matterport. I'm not sure if he still owns his Matterport. You guys can let me know in the chat. But I think like 2 weeks ago, he bought a lot of Matterport. And so he's up a lot on that. He's up like 2x. If Jesse has a post on the option on X. Okay, let me go to his Twitter. What is he saying? Okay, so he does have a post. So it seems like he has options on Matterport. All right, congrats to Jesse, dude. Congrats to Jesse. There you go. You got some options. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically he says the specific outcomes for call options depend on how the acquiring company handles the existing stock. All right, it looks like he got this from ChatGPT. All right, so it seems like whoever followed Jesse into that trade, congrats, you got a good one. I didn't when he bought Matterport, I had no idea why. I guess he saw it was technically oversold, which maybe it was right, and now you get an acquisition. Not bad at all. Greg says I have the $3 strikes 2026. All right, so Greg, let us know what your options look like once this gets unhalted. What happens? If you have options or shares, let us know what your portfolio looks like once this thing gets unhalted and we see this go higher. I'm just gonna look at one more comment right here. Tesla 142 again. Okay, yeah, let's go back to Tesla and talk about this here. So let's go back to Tesla and then I have a couple other stories I want to get to. So QQQ at 417, S&P 497, Palantir 2062, NVIDIA 787. Tesla here bouncing a little bit off that 139 level at 142. Here's the question for the chat, and I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Do you think Tesla can bounce from these levels on earnings due to the fact that it's already down 42% year to date? That is my question. And the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think it's crazy to imagine that Tesla is oversold enough and the catalysts have baked in for the stock to have a sympathy bounce, even if that sympathy bounce results in Tesla going back down again. But I also do think if Elon does not convince Wall Street, it's going to be bad. Remember on the Q4 earnings call when Elon and someone were arguing about Optimus, where someone said like, oh, it's useless. And Elon was like, well, no, it's useful for some things. If we get a flurry of those moments happening on the call again, and as Dan Ives says, there's not really an adult in the room that's talking about what's happening, I think it can get ugly. I think it can get really ugly. And so I'm curious, do you guys think the call is actually going to lead to Tesla coming back down, or do you think there's any sympathy pump it could get based on the fact that Tesla is obviously oversold in a pretty aggressive rate? Curious what you guys are thinking about that. As you guys are answering that question, let me pull up one other thing here as well so that we can look at some of the Mag 7 and some of the updated numbers. So Matterport is halted right now because they're getting acquired. For those that are asking, they're getting acquired. Full metrics on the Magnificent 7. Tesla is down 42% year to date, 468 billion market cap, 34 PE. Google, 1.92 trillion. Google is now more valuable than NVIDIA by a smidge, but they are more valuable, 26 PE. Again, cheaper than Tesla. Meta, 32 PE. $1.23 trillion market cap, cheaper than Tesla. Apple, 25 PE, cheaper than Tesla, $2.5 trillion market cap. NVIDIA up 57% year to date. Apple was down 12% year to date. 64 PE, more expensive on a PE basis, but probably worth it given the growth. 1.91 trillion, now less than Google. And then Amazon, 60 PE, up 15% year to date, 1.82 trillion. So still, one could argue Tesla's more expensive on a PE basis, even though their market cap has fallen below 500 billion. Tesla is not in the $1 trillion market club anymore, whereas the other companies are. And then Microsoft as well is up 6% year to date, 2.97 trillion, 36 PE. That one a little bit more expensive than Tesla right now. NVIDIA's ripping. Let's go to NVIDIA, and then I'll get to what you got. Wow, NVIDIA's up 3%. Look at that. NVIDIA's up 3%. Okay, what are you guys saying in the chat? Downside might be priced in. Bigger dropped after earnings. Another train wreck. Juan says whatever we think, the opposite will happen. If that's the case, I think this is the most bearish the market's ever been going into Tesla, which means the opposite would be that it bounces up if it goes against the herd. But I think the herd is definitely feeling that this is going to be a very, very bearish. Bay says, I think that it'll sell off into earnings, which is a good thing. That's fair. The question then becomes if Tesla is good enough to bounce from those earnings. And again, I don't know what the catalyst is to bounce above earnings. I think, some people were saying that margins are better than expected. I don't think that matters because if deliveries and volumes are lower, like that's not going to increase EPS. Operating income is still going to go down due to the fact that revenue is down. So I even if the margins go higher, I don't think that substantially increases the result on the estimates or on revenue per projections, especially because the street's going to try to use these earnings to figure out what's going to happen in Q2. And so I just don't know a world in which it has some phenomenal piece of news that goes higher, but maybe Elon knows something that the rest of us don't. Verizon now falling a little bit, 1.63. Their results were not bad. The revenue growth, they missed by a little, and that's why I think they're down, but they were up 3% in the pre-markets because their subscriber growth was relatively good. It wasn't amazing, but it was good. SMCI is up 2%. NVIDIA, wow. NVIDIA's up 4%. People are buying the dip on NVIDIA. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this. Matterport's up 10%. Is that ready? No, MicroStrategy. Sorry. MicroStrategy. Yeah, nice. MicroStrategy's up 10%. It was at $1,000 last week. Now MicroStrategy is up because Bitcoin has gone up. I did buy a new stock on Friday. For those that weren't part of the market close, you guys will get to see what stock I bought. Really important stock. I took advantage of the dip. I used everyone's fear as my alpha, and I'm proud to announce that I am a shareholder now of NVIDIA. There you go. I bought the dip on NVIDIA. Now, you may be arguing, hey, Amit, this picture says you only bought $1 of the dip. We don't need to focus on the little things, okay? The macro level thesis is that I did buy the dip on NVIDIA. And so whether it's $1, $2, $5, $100, $100, like no one's keeping track, all right? $1 of NVIDIA has been purchased. NVIDIA, I am now a shareholder. It shows up underneath Palantir and Robinhood in my holdings. And there you go. I'm someone said, oh, I thought someone said fractional shareholder. I thought that comment first said fictional shareholder, and I was dead. Yeah, instead of a fractional, I'm a fictional. But NVIDIA is bouncing, and the reason NVIDIA is bouncing is because they're still the best story in the street, and they're up 4%. I mean, down 10% in a day was pretty aggressive, but you know, when the selling happens, when the street finally realizes that this is a good company, it starts to rebound. And so 10% down is $230 billion. If for those that wanted more than 10% down, could it happen? Yeah, but that's a lot to ask given, you know, it already lost so much of its market cap. Matterport here is up 181%. So it's not at 550, it's at 494. So if you want to buy it right now for the arbitrage of 550, I would not do that. And I think it would be hard to time it correctly given those algorithms are working overtime right now, but I guess it's possible. Granted, we don't know exactly how the thing works out because you're only getting 275 of the stock for Matterport in cash. You're getting 275 of CoStar. So I've never seen that situation before. Does it actually go up to the 550 in total? Like, I'm not sure, quite frankly. So I think trying to arbitrage it right now is a bit dangerous and probably doesn't make the most sense. Also, the return is not that amazing. But if you have Matterport, you're up 180%, which is not bad. Not bad at all for Matterport. Who does anyone own Matterport in the chat? Did anyone own this? Let me know. Does anyone own this? Where's Tesla? Tesla 143. All right, nice little bounce from 138. There were dip buyers at 138 that got this thing to go higher, 143. S&P is green. Palantir 2079, trying to get back to that $21 level. Robinhood 1704. Robinhood back to the 17s. I think their Q1 earnings will cover it in May 8th. I think they're going to be pretty good. I think that's why the street keeps bouncing it back up to these levels because they know those earnings are going to be good. So we'll see what happens with the Robinhood in a few weeks. And NVIDIA here up 4% on the day. Celsius also up a little bit. CleanSpark up 2.85% now as well. The miners getting some love. Netflix falling almost 2%, 1.66% down. ARKZ, Kathy's been buying her own Ethereum fund. I didn't even know she had one of these, but she bought like 100,000 shares of ARKZ, which is her Ethereum fund, probably because Ethereum fell down. This like tracks the spot price of Ethereum. And Ethereum 3,100, it fell from about 3,800 last week as Bitcoin fell. So she bought the dip on her own fund in the context of Ethereum as well. Where's Coinbase? Is Coinbase up? Coinbase, I'll say, is 225. Wow, dude, I swear I didn't look at the price. I swear. I don't have another monitor that I'm looking at. Coinbase 225, not bad, up 7% on the day. Again, Bitcoin's up. That's why Coin is up. By the way, Coin's net income, I think, is just going to absolutely demolish. Like those results over Q1 are going to be phenomenal. The problem is that was the same case last time when they jumped from 160 to 194 in Q4 earnings, but then Bitcoin fell, and so they fell. So really, their earnings don't matter if Bitcoin drops. I mean, they could produce $1 trillion if Bitcoin collapses. Like, you know, it doesn't matter. So I think Coinbase will do well, but it all depends at the end of the day on how Bitcoin is going to do. Robinhood and Coinbase as well to show you guys iOS app rankings. They are back to number 12 and 13. They were stuck in the low 20s for the majority of the month. I tend to track these pretty much every day. And I don't know what triggered the spike over the weekend. Maybe it was the Bitcoin halving event and just people thinking about Bitcoin and wanting to get back into it. But Robinhood and Coinbase jumped up to number 12 and 13. And the reason why it's hard for them to be in the top 10 is because the IRS has an app that they came out with, the Credit Karma, TurboTax, all of these tax filing apps basically made the top 10 over the past month because people had to pay their taxes. So it pushed off the brokerages a little bit. And here we're seeing them get back to some of those higher levels, which is good for user acquisition, adoption, and then obviously more buying and selling of crypto. AJ says, I have $2 calls, January 26, 25 of them. So AJ, what are your calls looking like right now? What is the gain on the calls? I'm curious. You have $2 calls for January 2026. The stock's currently at 470 on Matterport. So, or 490. So what are your calls worth? How much are you up percentage-wise on those? Curious to see what this looks like when it comes to options. When is SMCI announcing results? I believe it is this week. SMCI is going to be announcing results. I'll give you the exact answer right now. April 30th. So in like next week on Tuesday, basically. Next week on Tuesday. And so we will see what happens with Matterport, with SMCI then, and keep going from there. Okay, let's talk about TikTok, and then let's do the earnings preview for this week, because we got a bunch of companies. This week is going to be one of the most biggest weeks. Today is the easiest day out of everybody. We'll also talk about Truist in a second, because we only had Verizon and Truist in the morning, and nothing after hours really that exciting. But every day this week is going to be pretty crazy when it comes to earnings. Meta right now currently is up 1%, and then Snapchat is up 5% from last week, up 1% today. Snapchat being up is stupid, and we'll talk about why in a second. But the reason people are buying these YOLO calls on Snapchat is because TikTok has been banned in the House of Representatives. Now, if you are not from the United States, there's two components to Congress: House of Representatives and the Senate. Both parts of Congress have to pass a bill on a majority decision. In the House, it passed 360 to 58. By the way, Ukraine and Israel also got funding. I think Ukraine got 95 billion and Israel got 25 billion. And TikTok was banned. The Senate has to pass this deal. Once the Senate passes this deal, the Biden can sign the bill. It is likely that the Senate's going to pass this bill. If the Senate doesn't pass this bill and TikTok does not get banned, it would be a big surprise. And I think the street's waiting on TikTok to get banned for Meta, Google, and Snapchat ultimately to get a benefit from this. Now, the Chinese government has signaled it would not allow a forced sale of the company. TikTok says it never has been asked to provide U.S. user data to the Chinese government, and it wouldn't be asked to. Fortune came out with an article this weekend interviewing high-level TikTok engineers that said, no, we were directly working with the CCP. So in terms of who I would believe, it would not be TikTok in this situation. We probably know what's happening when it comes to TikTok. Some lawmakers who supported the TikTok bill argued that it's fair game to ban the app since the U.S. social media apps are banned in China, and China has more than a decade ago banned Facebook, Google, Twitter, and YouTube. Now, Elon is not a fan of this bill because he believes the wording of this bill is ultimately going to be weaponized to censor X. I am sympathetic to his argument, and I think it makes sense. But at the end of the day, what's going on with TikTok in terms of the CCP having access to our data, it is pretty bad. And the bill doesn't get rid of TikTok. The bill says, okay, TikTok has to be divested from China, which brings up a question to me. Does Microsoft buy them? Like, who buys them? Who has the money? ByteDance is worth about 300 billion. I would argue TikTok's worth, I don't know, 100 of that billion, 200 billion. Like, TikTok's a majority of that. Like, do you know any other products in ByteDance besides TikTok? Like, no, it's TikTok. TikTok is ByteDance. You would argue that's a big thing. So if TikTok were to get banned, I wonder what company would buy it. And I also wonder from an antitrust perspective, if TikTok gets banned, who's going to buy it? Will the FTC allow Meta to buy it, even if it's it's obviously in violation of antitrust, if Meta has access to TikTok? No way, in my opinion. So who's a buyer? So I think the banning of it, MicroStrategy now at $1,300, is very up in the air. And if it does happen, if China, who's already said, hey, we're not letting you guys just buy up our app, if that worsens China relations with the United States, I wonder what implications that has on Chinese manufacturing, Taiwan, and then overall TikTok being allowed to be in the United States. So we're going to see. We're going to see kind of how that plays out in the context of TikTok. Isn't the TikTok federal ban really just a federal power grab in disguise? I mean, you could think that. And look, maybe you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. S&P right here at 497. I just think that I think it's obvious what TikTok is doing. And, the reason I started feeling a little bit more cared a little bit more about this is because we're not going to go into the story that happened over the weekend with Colombia, but the hearts and minds of the American youth are seeming to be plagued with particular ideals via the TikTok product that is explicitly promoting those ideals that are not really American values, in my opinion. I mean, there was a survey today done on CNBC around, do you trust capitalism or socialism more? And they interviewed 18-year-olds to 25 years old. And a lot of those people said, capitalism is leading to exploitation and blah, 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 and all this like fucking communist garbage, in my opinion. I'm sorry if that's a little bit too aggressive for people. That's personally how I feel. And I was the same person who would have said the same thing back in 2015 when I was more in the camp of Bernie Sanders. I have fundamentally changed because I believe capitalism is one of the greatest systems on the planet. Can it be reformed? Can it be better? Do we need to have different regulations? Yes, of course, obviously. But to say that it's exploiting people, the only reason we're here is because YouTube was created under the guise of capitalism. This MacBook was created because of capitalism. Webull, what I'm looking at to get the charts, and like all this stuff is created because there is an intrinsic incentive for humans to actually build things via capitalism. And so I think the youth kind of feeling against that is partly in part because China wants to make people feel that these are not good values. And that's bad. SMCI down about 2.29%. We're going to see how it plays out, but I do think if you want to protect those values, the propaganda machine that is TikTok, which look, I scroll through TikTok every day. Okay. So I use the product as well. It's not like I'm like against the fundamentals of the product, but being in the controls of the CCP probably is not the best idea. Probably not the best idea. Zocold says exploitation is greed. There's a difference between greed and capitalism. I would agree. I would agree as well. Okay. Where is Tesla? Where's Tesla? Is it bouncing? SMCI below 700. Tesla 143. Tesla's holding up. Tesla's holding up. It's not going away so quickly, dude. It's not letting the street take it away just yet. Let's quickly do Truist earnings because I said I would cover that, and then we'll move on to another topic. So Truist right now, the reason I think they're green, right? I think Truist is green. They were down a little bit in the pre-market. They beat on EPS. They missed on revenue. I do not have a Truist position anymore. For those that are wondering, I sold my position for a 35% gain. So I made $5,000 back in February. And I sold when it was 34, and I wrote it from about 26, and I dumped all of that into Robinhood when it was $14. So I kind of doubled down on the Robinhood position at $14 by selling Truist, and I made about 35%. I ultimately think it was the right decision because Truist needs some time to actually continue to develop. It's barely green right now. It's up 0.08%. And the reason for that is because rates are not getting cut anytime soon, whereas I think Robinhood has a lot more short-term catalysts and actually benefits off higher rates. So Truist earnings on EPS, they beat by 10 cents. So they beat by 12%, 90 cents versus 80 cents. On revenue, reported was 4.87 billion, expected 5.7 billion. So they missed by 15% on revenue. Now, why did they miss on revenue? Well, the reason they missed on revenue is because the banking sector, particularly the regional banking sector, is not having the easiest time. Rate cuts need to happen for the loan losses, which on Truist, I think it's upwards of $20 billion of loan losses, those AOIC losses, to come down to increase tangible book value for the street to be able to buy Truist. Now, Truist is trading at a substantial discount. I think fair value is close to $42. Right now, it's at $36. It was more attractive at $27 because of the regional banking, I guess, crisis that happened after Silicon Valley Bank collapse. But now that that collapse is done and regional banks aren't really in a crisis anymore, Truist has to put up the numbers, and they're not really putting up the numbers right now, which is why they're seeing not a lot of momentum. KRE, the regional banking ETF, is up at 47.59, up 0.457% on the day. So the bigger banks like JP Morgan have done really good on earnings. JP Morgan's up right now. Bank of America, it got sold off a little bit, but it's up right now as well, which means I think the regionals will follow. But until those rate cuts truly happen, Truist is the best regional, but all the regionals are going to need time. And if the rate cuts are not happening until September, then Truist is probably not going to get a lot of momentum until September. So we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see until Truist actually gets to those levels. But that's the update on Truist right now. Nothing that crazy outside of the fact that, you know, they had a decent earnings, but those earnings are not substantial enough to move the market. Celsius was up 5%, now down. It's up to 1%. Yeah, Celsius selling off a little bit. Same thing with Palantir. Celsius 69.20, now it's up 0.5%. Tesla, wow, 144. Dip's getting bought. People are buying Tesla. People are buying Tesla. It's still red for the day, but people are buying it. MicroStrategy, wow, 12.5. Look at that. MicroStrategy, if you got the $1,000 dip, you're up $300 in like 4 days. Not bad on MicroStrategy. Where's Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin getting higher? Is that why MicroStrategy? Yeah, Bitcoin breaking 66. There you go. Getting some momentum on Bitcoin. Finally getting some momentum when it comes to Bitcoin. Let's see if we can get back to 67, 68. We've been missing those levels for a while, and I think it'll be exciting to see if we can get back to those levels. But right now, Bitcoin is there. Ethereum 31.95, Robinhood 17.03, Coinbase 2.25. All the miners are up as well. Look at CleanSpark up 5%. The miners are going to do well if Bitcoin starts to go higher because the street knows that the miners are going to start printing money. But if Bitcoin can't quickly get to the levels that the street wants it to get to, I think, you know, the street will lose a little bit of patience. But as of now, I think the street's going to give some time for the halving event to actually create the supply shock that they are looking for. And if that's the case, the miners are going to benefit dramatically. Adam says, you know who bought that dip? I think I know. I think I know who bought a little bit of this MicroStrategy dip. Not bad at all for MicroStrategy. The semis are okay. Taiwan's down. Intel's up a little bit and SMCI is down. The rest are up. AMD, wow, 147. AMD went from 225 to 147 in the past 18 days. So AMD is down. They're going to have earnings in 2 weeks. And NVIDIA, I am up 4% on my NVIDIA position as of Friday. Again, your fear was my alpha. And so, dude, that line was going on Twitter the whole week. As Friday was selling off, every like other tweet was these like accounts saying your fear is my alpha. And I was like, this is the most nerdiest shit ever. Like, I don't know why everyone's saying it, but it's kind of funny. Your fear is my alpha. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start saying your fear is my alpha. And so many people congratulated me. They're like, oh, congrats, you're part of the NVIDIA family. And I'm like, dude, it's $1. But like, yep, I'm part of the family. I'm part of the NVIDIA family. Okay, let's get an update here from someone who I thought, from iCapital's Anastasia. I thought she had some good analysis on why investors should buy this dip from a technical perspective, and also what she thinks is going to happen in the macro, making this dip actually a dip that's reasonable to buy. Let's get her thoughts, and then we'll keep going from there.
Markets now ahead of the busy week of tech earnings. Anastasia Amoroso is chief investment strategist at iCapital. It'd be nice and clean to get 10%. Will we?
I don't know if we're going to get there, Joe. And, the reason I say that is because we came into the month of April with a very tough technical backdrop, but we've quickly corrected that. And so what was an overbought conditions for stocks is now shaping up to be an oversold condition for stocks.
That's quick.
Very, very quickly. And, it's interesting. In the beginning of April, you really couldn't find any investors that were bearish on stocks. And now the percent of bears is just about outpacing the percent of bulls. So I do think we got a pretty quick technical correction. And with almost, between $3.5 to $4 trillion of money markets on U.S. households' balance sheets, I think investors will be looking to step in.
I don't know if fundamentals are ever coincident with what actually happens in the stock market, but we've got plenty of reasons to explain 5%, given what's changed in the last 6 weeks in terms of inflation fears, rate cut hopes. I don't even, there's some people saying 2025 now.
Right.
And they say, until we get the first cut. How do we know it's even going to be a cut and not a hike at this? So there's plenty of, does that shift to allow us to make a bottom at only 5%?
Yeah, I'm really glad you bring up the fundamentals, because there has been a repricing, specifically in yields, and I actually think that's very constructive. So when I look at yields today, I mean, we've moved, almost 100 basis points since the beginning of the year. Not quite, but what that means is that the market is now more in line with the Fed's thinking. The market is more in line with where we're seeing growth, and the market is more in line with inflation expectations. So what I like about the 10-year at these levels is that it's actually trading above the implied fair value by some models. We've now priced in maybe a rate cut, if that. So I think the market is exactly where the Fed wants it to be right now. And so if the 10-year Treasury yield can pause around current levels, that's another reason to say that equity market probably presents good value.
Someone pointed out.
The question is, will the 10-year pause? All right. That 10-year you can see at 4.662. That thing heads up to 4.85. S&P is getting down to 10%. Why would it head to 4.885? Because more data will come out that inflation is sticky. Oil prices are down. So that's really good. I think that's why the 10-year is stabilizing right now. If that can come down to 4.4, then maybe this really is the dip to buy. But the existential question is, will inflation start to come down?
Up 30% or so, even after this pullback in the S&P over the past 18 months. Why is bearish sentiment, why was it rekindled so easily with only a 5% pullback? Why aren't people more in love with this one?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were optimistic on the markets because of the rate cuts. That was a big narrative going into the year, but there's another reason to be optimistic about the equity markets. Even without the rate cuts, you have resilient growth. We get GDP growth for the first quarter this week, and we're looking for about 2.5% increase in the fourth quarter GDP. That's a reason to be optimistic on the market. But for those, previously in the bullish camp, they were looking for rate cuts, and that's why they flipped.
So bearish sentiment right now is been increased enough to where you think we make a bottom before a further pullback before another 5%?
I think you always need a catalyst. And for this week in particular, obviously, we got the big tech earnings to look forward to. And I like that the reset that we've had in some of those valuations as well. But the other catalyst I'm looking for is actually this Friday, which is the core PC number.
Yeah.
Clearly the last few months of inflation prints, that's what's really stoked the bearish sentiment.
By the way, core PCE is 2.6, which is closer to the Fed target than the 3.5 headline CPI. And the Fed really only cares about core PCE. So if that thing can get a little bit lower, maybe the idea of rate cuts happening soon, or at least in the next few months, is not that crazy.
But if you look at the core PC, the big distinction between that print versus the other inflation print is you have a lot less housing exposure. So versus 32% in the core CPI basket, here you have about 15 or 16% exposure. And by the way, last week we've got the new tenant rent index that registered at 0.4% year-over-year increase versus, it was running at 12% some year, a couple of quarters ago. So I actually think the core PC number, if it comes in line with expectations of 0.3 month over month and 2.7 year-over-year, that could be your catalyst, Joe, to kind of say that we have had enough of a correction.
What happens if it's hotter?
Well, then I do think, Becky, that there's more downside to go. And although I'm encouraged by the pickup in the bearish sentiment, the reason I say investors should be looking to buy this pullback gradually is because you do have a lot of length from systematic investors. So for example, the commodity trading advisors, they're just about near max long. If you look at hedge funds, they've added a lot of gross and net exposure. So if we do trade down because of a core PC miss, then I think you have more of a technical unwind. So, look, investors still are sitting on those money market funds. And I think a lot of investors have their strategic allocation, but they're underweight equities quite significantly. So we've been waiting for this all year, is for the opportunity to get back to strategic allocation. And I think that's what this pullback is about. You don't need to buy it all here right now, but gradually buying the dip is what I would do here.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's super reasonable. And she lays out the bear case as well. 10-year goes higher, core PCE goes higher, equities take a little bit of a rest. The one thing we all can agree on is those money markets mean that money is waiting. It's just not coming yet. They did decrease $112 billion last week, money market funds, but that was because of taxes. I got super excited when I saw that number. Like, oh my God, money markets are down $112 billion. And then I realized like everyone has to pay their taxes. So there's none of that money, I think, is actually came into the markets. But that is going to be one of those catalysts that helps propel a little bit more liquidity as we see inflation comes down, if inflation can actually come down. JR says car insurance, which weighed on March CPI, is calculated way different than PCE. Core PCE year-over-year consensus is lowest since March 21 and may come in lower and lower the rest of the year. Yes, I agree. That's a very good point. I do not think the inflation is dead narrative is going anywhere or is stopping. I think that narrative is strong. The problem is in the short term, it's taking a little bit of a breather, which is fine. Just like stocks are taking a breather. But I do think by the end of the year, inflation will be down. Look at crypto. Bitcoin 66.3, CleanSpark 1812, Coinbase 225, Robinhood 1705, MicroStrategy 1300. Crypto is green. Riot, Marathon, HUD, Iran Cypher, all of these are green. Maybe that halving event is starting to come in. The ETFs obviously are going to be instrumental here in creating more inflows over the weekend, which is going to be good. BlackRock buys. I did some analysis on Saturday. Let me just share that real quick. I posted on Twitter. BlackRock is buying basically 4,000 Bitcoin a day. MicroStrategy is buying 2,222 Bitcoin every single day. So the numbers on the amount of Bitcoin that are being purchased will go higher. And now there's less in supply, which again, theoretically should be a good thing for inflation. Enovix is falling right now. Yeah. We've talked about Enovix on the channel. Enovix, if you're investing in it, it's a startup. You're waiting for it to play out over 10 years. Enovix is not something that's going to, necessarily go to the upside quick. So if you're in Enovix, you just got to have that mindset. They make battery packs, and those battery packs have a lot of potential. It's just going to take time for that thing to play out. So BlackRock buys 3,965 Bitcoin a day. Fidelity buys 2,222. ARK buys 626. Bitwise buys 488. And Grayscale sells 4,500 Bitcoin a day. Total inflows in the Bitcoin ETFs has been 36 billion over the past 69 trading days. Bitcoin is 56% since the ETFs launched. And I think those numbers should sustain themselves as this halving event makes Bitcoin a bit more scarce, which will hopefully allow the price to go higher. I mean, that's a basic thesis. You don't have to be super smart to understand that. And if that's the case, we should see a little bit more liquidity entering the ecosystem. If inflation's sticky, Middle Eastern crisis gets worse, I think all of that goes to shit. We have to have some reasonable amount of inflation coming down and geopolitical stability for this thesis to play out. And hopefully that will be the case. BITX, that is a 2x leveraged fund on Bitcoin, if I'm not wrong on that, right? BITX, yeah, 2x Bitcoin strategy ETF. Their assets under management is 1.4 billion. So about 1.5 billion have been thrown into this fund. So if you are bullish on Bitcoin, this is a leveraged fund to get 2x exposure. You just have to remember that when Bitcoin goes down, you're also going to go down just as quick as you go up. So that is one thing to remember on that. I think BITO as well. You can't buy leaps on the ETFs, but on BITO, which is basically a spot Bitcoin ETF kind of, it's a way to track the spot price of Bitcoin. This has 2.4 billion assets under management, and you can buy options on that. So that's another way to get leveraged exposure to Bitcoin. Truist now up a little bit, up about 1%, not bad. Meta 483, Coinbase 226. Let's look at the Mag 7. Mag 7, everything is green except Tesla. Google's 157, Amazon's 176, Nvidia 786, Nvidia up 3.2%. Apple, little green, even though that's been red for the past couple of days. Microsoft 400, it was 399 in the pre-markets. Meta 43, then Tesla maintaining that 142 level. Wow, Thomas is up 20,000 over the weekend on BitX. Not bad at all. Obviously, if Bitcoin goes higher, then those gains are going to get even better. That's the cool thing about leverage plays. When you're right about something and you're on leverage, I mean, it's like a roller coaster. It's awesome to the upside. But when you're wrong, obviously, it's also really sucks, right? So those ETFs or those levered plays don't look the best when this thing goes really red, especially if you buy it around the top, right? If you bought this shit at 68, 67 and it was at 60 over the week, you're breaking even right now. But a lot of people were down over the weekend. The good thing about Bitcoin, again, is that I think the catalysts are in place. I think this thing is going to hit 100K or close to 100K by the end of the year. But it will be a bumpy ride to get there, even if I am incredibly impatient to see it get there. I just want to see this go up now. Like, let's come on, like this stupid fucking halving event. No one knows what the hell this halving event even does. Like it's like a religious event that happens every 4 years. It's like, dude, get it over with and get the thing to go up. Let's get this party started. I'm tired of this shit now. I'm tired. I need this Bitcoin to go up. Akshat says all-time highs before halving probably allowed the miners to generate funds for post-halving running costs. Bitcoin might not drop now significantly, which will be used in previous halvings. That's a very good piece of analysis, and I hope you're right on that. I think it makes a lot of sense. Historically, we're down 6% the month after the halving event, so we'll see if that holds up true. But given that we had an anomaly, we were hit all-time highs before the halving, maybe that doesn't play the same role this time. Okay, let's end it off with a quick earnings preview for this week, and then we'll do word of the day, and then I will get you guys out of here. I hope everyone has a great week. Big week. A lot of stuff to do. Got a lot of work to get done this week as well. And we'll get the week started on a Monday morning. I woke up at 4 a.m. today. Now, granted, I slept at 11, so I slept early, and I was very happy to sleep at 11. Woke up at 4 a.m. If I could do that every day, that'd be amazing. We started off the week right, sleeping on time, and now we just got to keep going. Amit, do you know the narrative around DNA? Why is it dropping? Ginkgo Bioworks is a company that has earnings in shambles, and they're not going to grow anytime soon, and management is selling a lot of shares. That's the basic story. So synthetic biology, super exciting. It's not going to play out for a while. They have not shown any major progress. Their biosecurity revenue has gone from 250 million to zero. Cell programs are not growing substantially, and management keeps selling shares. There's like no bull case to buy Ginkgo. There's like zero, even though it's like under $1 now. So that's why it's down. Okay, so these are the stocks we're looking at this week. There's 5 that are on my radar. I'm not going to talk a lot about them because you guys know my general thoughts, but Tesla, we already talked a lot about it. Not going to talk about it. Tesla's the big one tomorrow. Second one I'm looking at is Meta. The big thing I'm looking at on Meta is their AI integration. Now you might be seeing it in WhatsApp, Facebook, or Instagram. They have Meta AI, which is basically like the search box is replaced with like an LLM search box, right? So I can ask like, hey, what are the best like places to eat in Paris, and it'll start generating answers. Whereas historically, if I searched for that on Facebook, it would like generate user-generated content. So they're using all that data, and they're probably going to be using that as a pinpoint for advertising. Because if you start searching what are the best places to eat in Paris on Meta AI, because you're in Paris or you're visiting Paris, you're a tourist, and you have friends that are in Paris, right? All that data is going to be used to give you better advertising. So I think the advertising benefits on this are going to be substantial. So that's going to be really important to watch out for Meta. And we're going to see what Zucks says over their earnings. Google, I think Google might give a divvy. Call me crazy. They have 120 billion in cash. Stocks up 12% year to date. I got on Sundor's back the last earnings because I felt that he really didn't answer questions effectively when it comes to monetizing AI, especially because 10 blue links are not going to last forever. They made a lot of progress. Google Cloud is probably going to be profitable. Last quarter made 900 million in profits, and so that's growing very nicely. But if they give a divvy, I think Google really starts to perform. I don't know if they're going to give a divvy. They're probably not going to give a divvy, but they have enough money to give a divvy. And I think a dividend would be a baller move by Sundar. Also, he fired those employees who were protesting last week for the Israeli cloud computing contract. So maybe he's feeling a little bit, more like, look, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm focused on the company and let's get the job done. Microsoft, the big thing to understand about Microsoft, right now, Dan Ives says that Wedbush sees 7 out of 10 enterprise clients using Copilot, which is a $30 per month subscription. Whereas 1 year ago, it was 2 out of 10. So if that has more than tripled in terms of the usage of Copilot, their overall market share should grow. Azure AI cloud computing should grow substantially. And GPT-5 is coming out soon. If GPT-5 is better than Llama, Cloud, Gemini, etc., Microsoft is going to be the winner, or they're going to be one of the more substantial winners when it comes to AI if GPT-5 becomes a real thing. So I want to hear updates on what they think about GPT-5, given they own 50% of OpenAI. And then finally, Snapchat. I don't think there's any reason the stock should be up. The reason it's up is because of this TikTok ban. I do think their Snap AI program is promising, but it's not growing substantially enough to overcompensate for the excessive stock-based compensation and the lack of profitability. Management has not cared about shareholders. The one thing I think Snapchat needs to do, which I don't think they're going to do, is live shopping. If you've scrolled on TikTok, they're basically monetizing massively their live vertical feed. So like I actually bought something from TikTok the other day. I bought this water flosser. So like instead of flossing your teeth with like a traditional like piece of floss tape, you can use this water flosser. It was like $10, dude. It was super cheap. I was like, fuck it, why not? I've been seeing this all the time. And I actually purchased something and it's a pretty good product. So that creator who made the video got an affiliate piece of revenue from me buying it. And then TikTok, got me into their ecosystem from buying products. So I think if Snapchat did that, that's a way to actually open up the product to like start becoming a commerce play versus an advertising play, given the users are so young. They don't really have money to benefit from the advertising. But I don't think they're going to do that. If they did do that, I do think that would be better for Snapchat. That's probably not going to happen, though. It's likely not going to happen to me. Final things I'm looking at. TFC, they had earnings today. Earnings went pretty good. Spotify, record labels are going to take a big cut, but they did raise prices. So even if the record labels take a cut, I'm curious about the ownership split between the raising of the prices with the record labels. Because if Spotify increased the prices by $2, but the record labels still take the same cut they took before, how much more incremental revenue, which means how much more incremental operating margins does Spotify actually get as an increase from that decision? So curious about that. Users are probably going to grow 20 million users over the past 30 days. And then Enphase, similar to Tesla, if Enphase can't show growth and interest rates are not really going that well, then it's not going to be a good quarter for Enphase. I'm curious to see if they can bottom out or if management can show international expansion is actually going to go okay for the company, given it's not been okay for the past few quarters. And that's it. That's what we're going to be looking at in the context of earnings this week. Look at Bitcoin right here, 66,300, still performing well. Seems like it's getting a ton of momentum. You guys, the water floss I bought was not used. Okay, it was like a real product. I got it in like a real box and everything. It was good. It's a decent product, dude. It works and it was cheap. And it was the first time I bought something from it because I went on Amazon to check the prices. It was more expensive on Amazon, and so I was like, all right, let me just buy it from TikTok. Now it did take longer to get here. It took like a week versus 2 days. But still, it was a commerce play that was very easy. And I think if Instagram or Snapchat, became the problem is now TikTok feels like QVC. Like every video you scroll, there's a product that you could buy. So it does take away a little bit from the user experience. But I don't think it's the worst idea when it comes to monetizing. Coinbase 223, Meta's now negative 477. I think that's nice going negative into the print rather than being at 530. NASDAQ 15,000, Google 156, Apple 165. Where's Palantir? Palantir here at 2051, and then Robinhood here at 1696. 1696 for Robinhood, and then Palantir here at 2050. All right, not bad. You just gave China your credit card info. Yep. And now they're gonna see all the things I purchased. Dude, that's one of the reasons I never want to go to China. Let's do word of the day. Like I honestly, like as beautiful as some of the things are in China, I am scared because I've said some pretty nasty things about China on this stream. Like, what if these guys know? Honestly, what if these guys know and I step in and they're like, we've been expecting you? Like, I know it's maybe an irrational fear, but like, I have no desire to go to China and potentially like never come back. You know, like it's not that exciting to me. So I don't think I'm ever going to visit China in my life. Honestly, I'm honestly scared about it. You might think it's crazy, but honestly, I'm scared. You just never know what these guys know. You were on China's tooth lovers data list, dude. It's crazy. I know it's a stupid, irrational fear, but it's one of those things you think about. You know, you never know. Okay, word of the day: steadfast.
Steadfast.
I'm 3 for 3 on word of the days, dude. Firm in purpose, resolution, faith, or attachment. I know this word. Okay, let's do a better word. This is kind of boring. Word of the day. Let's do Merriam-Webster. What do they have? Oh, I think I know this word as well. Palpable.
Palpable.
I'm 4 for 4, dude. This guy can't say words. I've been killing it. Something described as palpable is obvious and notable. Palpable may be used as a synonym of tangible to describe something that can be perceived by one's sense of touch. All right, so it is palpable that Tesla might not crush these earnings unless Elon is steadfast in getting investors to believe that robotaxis are coming. Let's see. Let's see what happens on these Tesla earnings. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for being here on another Market Open. It's Monday. Got a lot of stuff to do. I know you guys got to get to work, so we got to get this ball moving and get the week started. Always nice to get a good start of the week and carry on with momentum. One final thing I'll say, again, I mentioned in the beginning for those that did not see the announcement, good friend of mine, Derek Wall, and I started a VC fund. It is live and it is active. We deployed capital against 3 deals. If you have a startup, know a friend who has a startup, have any deals, we got a bunch of deals already over the weekend, email amitderekfund@gmail.com with the pitch decks and metrics, and we'll get back to you within a week or two. And we're trying to find the next Instagram or the next Facebook or the next Salesforce or anything. And it's really hard to find the next big billion-dollar idea. So we got to do a lot of networking to find these ideas. But if you have an idea, I want this live stream to be a way for people to get a chance to access capital. And then if the idea is good, maybe this entire live stream can invest at the earliest stage in that deal. So definitely make sure to let people know about this. This is probably the easiest way to get into a pitch. I've been through the pitch game before. I've been a founder before. It's very hard to get access to people that have a decent amount of capital that they can invest. If you're part of the stream, part of this community, if you know someone who's raising, this is the easiest way for them to get a response, for them to get taken seriously, and for them to potentially get an investment. So definitely check it out. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys 3:45 p.m. for the market close, and we'll see how this plays out. And then Tesla earnings tomorrow. That's going to be a big one. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys later today. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.